Cool concert, am I right?
Yeah, nice try, Narc.
Where's the narc? Who?
That fat Jamaican guy.
What did I say? What's going on?
Hey, we're just trying to have a good time, Narc. Why do you want to destroy us?
Don't commit your hate crimes here. Hate crime!
Okay, I'm heading out now. More butt support. More butt support.
Hey, that's our best-dressed best friend on Who's the Ross. He's back, baby. Hey, you narc. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, that's based on a totally real moment, by the way. When I was there.
Well, I know, yeah. So all right, let's get right into it. You wrote Homerpalooza. This episode is one of Rolling Stone's top 150 Consequence of Sound just last year, rated the third best Simpsons episode of all time.
Wow.
So you can hang that or put that on your shelf behind you.
Amazing. I'm so pleased with that. I might have to add that to my mug with all of my top credits. My dad made me this mug for Christmas, I may have told you. And it's got Lemon of Troy on it, but it looks like we got to get Homerpalooza in there somewhere.
Lemon of Troy is, I want to say, in the top 25 or 50 on Rolling Stone. Also, I always like to point out my credits glass mom gave me, which is... There's so you write this Homerpalooza episode, and it's based on essentially experience you had. The Simpsons say, "Hey, we want to write this this episode where Homer goes to a music festival. Go to Lollopalooza, do research. Let's talk about it."
That's right. They bought me a ticket to the show, and I drove my car down there. I had a 1970 Pontiac GTO at the time. For car lovers, that's a pretty cool car, but it was an old car, and it overheated in the drive in, and have my first experience of what Lollapalooza was going to be for me, because I had to stop the car for just a minute to let the car cool down, and immediately this dude started laying on his horn and wanted me to move and could he go around me, and I tried to talk to him, and he immediately just wanted to fight me, like, can I please beat you up, was basically his counteroffer to my polite request to give me a second.
Let's get a little backstory of where is it? Because Lollapalooza was it a touring thing, or was it in one city at that time? It was touring.
It was touring, yeah, and this time it was in Irvine, which is just south of Los Angeles, some Irvine fairgrounds. They
just the rockinest town that you could put a music festival in.
yeah, behind the orange curtain, as they say, in Orange County.
Right. And what year was this?
96.
96.
1996. So the big takeaway that I took from Lollapalooza was that even though I was only 28 years old, as I recall, I felt like I was 100. I mean, everybody seemed to despise me for being old at like 28 years old. And right from the start, this kid who wanted to fight me for my car overheating, was like the first sign that things were not going to be mellow and cool. And when I got in there, I was just vibed constantly. At one point, the low point for me was I was watching a band. I think it was my recollection was it was Alanis Morissette, but I'm not sure she actually played Lollapalooza, so it might have been an Alanis Morissette type. But I remember trying to soak up the experience of the crowd and being in a crowd in front of the stage, and somebody bumped into me and then turned to me and went like this with his fingers and said, "Leg up, dude." And so I didn't know what this meant. I just did that, and then he put his foot in my hands, and then I just lifted him onto the crowd, and he just crowd surfed along just the sea of people. And so like 15 minutes later, somebody bumped into me, and I was like, "Leg up, dude." I just said it right back to some guy, and he did this, and I just put his hands, and then I would have flat up on the crowd. And for like 4 seconds, it was just ecstatic. And then they just kind of shuffled me all the way along to the front where there's like what they call a warning track between the crowd and the stage. And then they just dump me. Like
they just dump you.
Whatever 5 foot plus arms is, like 8 feet onto concrete, just on my back. And so painful. I lost my wind. I was completely thrashed. And when I looked up, there was just a bunch of like dead faces of youth staring at me. And one guy just looked at me with the absolute absence of compassion. And he said, "You fucked up, dude." Oh my God. I'm just hated here. So it was just this awful experience. And many of the details in that episode are straight from my experience. Like, like the snarky kid who's selling, snow cones, but he's got a giant tip jar that says karma. And then when you don't tip him, you just karma. Yeah, karma. I was like, this doesn't really feel like a karmic exchange. This just feels like a tip jar where you're making me feel worse. So that made it in the episode. But the narc thing was, at that time, I used to walk around with a handheld tape recorder all the time. I would be recording, whatever idea came to my head or anything I observed. I was trying to be that kind of writer who was always putting down real material. And so I had this tape recorder all through Lollopalooza, blah, blah, blah. And at one point there was this guy, young guy again, and he just kept staring at me really suspiciously. He had like a little, like the roach of a joint. He was kind of choking on his joint. And he's looking at me, talking to my tape recorder, and he says, what are you doing there, dude? And I said, I'm just recording some stuff. And he goes, am I on there, dude? And I was like, you are not, because there's nothing you've said that I would want to hear again. And he goes, sure thing, narc. That's where it came from. He just figured I was a narcotics officer who just was cruising around, with my tape recorder getting info. So that's what went into the episode.
Well, there's an interesting thing of that scene crushes me every time. There's this interesting art imitating life, imitating art thing that happens there, at least for my generation. But you have to realize Lollapalooza was very formative. It sort of plays when I'm 12 to 17. The Simpsons episodes are very formative. And when we watch that episode and they're like, who's a narc? Come on, narc. We're just trying to have a good time. We would then always just call anybody. If anyone told on you in class or was saying, I should ask my parents, we'd be like, come on, narc. With the same tone. So you gave us that. And no doubt people were saying it, but I feel like it was more of the lexicon for a new generation because of The Simpsons.
Cool. I'm glad. Yeah, it was that moment also kind of crystallized the theme of the episode, because we didn't have really a story or a theme going down there, but this whole theme of Homer's alienation from youth culture becomes the thrust of the episode. That's where it started, was my feeling of like, wow, I thought Gen X was friendly, but it turns out they're just this very dark and kind of snarky, hateful crowd down there. At least
in this episode, there's Smashing Pumpkins, Cypress Hill, Sonic Youth. Peter Frampton was sort of a curveball in there, but a lot of this sort of Gen Xer 90s band. There's this classic line, maybe you want to tell it, the Billy Corgan Smashing Pumpkins line.
Oh, I don't remember that line. What is it?
He goes, Billy Corgan Smashing Pumpkins, and Homer says, Homer Simpson smiling politely.
Ah, yes, that's good. That's a good joke. I did not write that joke. I do remember being very proud, though, of the joke where Courtney Love says, hey, Cannonball Guy, I saw your act, Courtney Love. And he goes, Courtney Love, Homer, grateful. That I thought was a first-class line.
Did you write that line?
I wrote that line, yeah.
Brent, what you don't know, and you just helped me segue into, is Courtney Love's not in that episode.
No!
You wrote that line for her, and they adapted it because they didn't have Courtney Love, but they got Smashing Pumpkins. Therefore, that's the line. But the line was supposed to be, she meets Homer and says, Courtney Love, and he goes, Homer grateful.
Yes. Oh my God. So I have a phantom memory of a joke that never made it in the script. Interesting. And then you can see how the rewrite process works. Oh, we didn't get Courtney Love. We got these guys and we adapted the line.